The photo hit me harder than any confession ever could. It was a Saturday morning, quiet and almost painfully ordinary. I was in my robe, watering the lawn, coffee machine hissing behind me, birds just beginning their routine chorus. For a moment, everything felt safe. Normal. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Facebook. There she was, Alice, my wife of 27 years, standing shoulder to shoulder with Bryce, her office's golden retriever of a man. He had one arm wrapped around her, the other holding 2 drinks. Her head tilted toward him, smiling like they were auditioning for engagement photos. The caption read, "My real partner, #WorkHasBenForave, 2 hearts, 57 likes. 16 comments, each one more nauseating than the last. Love you too. Finally, just say it already. Office goals." I stared at it. The first time I reread it, I actually laughed. The dry, breathless kind of laugh that dies halfway through your throat because your body knows better than to waste the oxygen. But I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I didn't even comment. I simply walked back inside, poured the rest of the coffee into my mug, opened the kitchen drawer, and pulled out the beige folder I had prepared 3 weeks ago. Not out of paranoia, out of instinct. That folder had everything ready. A divorce petition, financial disclosures, property division sheets. My lawyer had called it clean and aggressive. I had called it inevitable, and before I sat down, I did one more thing. I opened Facebook. Her post was still there, bold and glowing like a neon sign. I typed a single comment beneath it. "Congratulations. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table." I hit post, logged out, and went back outside to finish watering the grass. The sprinkler hissed like nothing had changed, but everything had. She called that night, right on schedule. The tone was wrong from the start, too cheerful, too rehearsed. That plastic sing-song voice she used when she wanted to sound innocent. "Hey, babe," she said, dragging the word out like syrup. "I saw your little comment online. You're not actually mad, are you?" It was a joke. Everyone at the office does that. Work husband, work wife, it's just for laughs. I didn't answer. I let her fill the silence. Because silence is rope, and people like Alice always hang themselves with it. "You seriously?" Took it the wrong way. She kept babbling. "It's Bryce. For God's sake, he's harmless. You're being dramatic." Finally, when she stopped to inhale, I gave her 3 words. "Check the kitchen." The line went dead quiet. Then she laughed, the kind of nervous laugh that cracks halfway through. "Oh my God, you're joking." "You didn't actually," but I didn't reply. Her laughter thinned. "You're such a dork sometimes." Seriously, it was a dumb caption. I didn't mean anything by it. Sure, just like she hadn't meant anything when I overheard her whisper to Bryce on speakerphone at 11:37 p.m. 3 weeks ago, "You looked so good today in that gray shirt." Stop it, I was blushing all through that meeting. Imagine if we didn't have to sneak around. That was the night I called Marcus, my lawyer. Told him I wasn't at the iceberg yet, but I could see it on the radar. His advice had been simple. Start gathering quietly. When it hits, move fast. Don't engage. So I didn't engage. I executed. I ended the call with Alice by saying, flat and polite, "Take care, Alice." Click. I imagined her standing in our kitchen, staring at the folder, the legal seal, the absence of warning, just facts, like her caption. And that's when it began. Monday. 9:14 a.m., I logged into my burner Gmail account, the one I used years ago for Amazon returns and Craigslist furniture. She thought I'd forgotten about it. I pulled up the screenshot. One last time Alice draped over Bryce, caption blazing, "My real partner, #WorkHasBenForave." My own comment just beneath it, clean and sharp as a scalpel. "The divorce papers are on the kitchen table." Subject line of my email, "Inappropriate conduct, you decide." Attachment, screenshot of the Facebook post, metadata intact. Message, "Not sure what your internal policies are, but this photo appears to have been taken during company time at a company-sponsored event and seems to involve a supervisor making public claims about a romantic relationship with a subordinate. I'll leave the interpretation to you." No signature, no flourish, just truth. I hit send, closed the laptop, went outside to trim hedges like nothing happened. And if you're listening to this without hitting subscribe, now's the time. These stories only work if you stick with them, and, trust me, this one only gets colder. By noon, her Facebook post was gone. By 3 p.m. I got a text from Dawn, a friend who worked in IT at her company. "Bro, HR just opened a case." Boom. That night, while Alice was no doubt crafting a limp apology in her hotel room, I sat with a legal pad and a checklist I'd been curating since that laundry room phone call weeks ago. Item 1. Transfer my 401k into a separate living trust. Already done. Item 2. Change the life insurance beneficiary. Used to be Alice, now my sister, Elaine. Item 3. Separate bank accounts. Passwords changed. Funds moved. Item 4. Cancel her access to my credit cards. It wasn't spite. It was architecture. Every form I signed, every account I updated, it was the sound of structure being pulled out from under her. one bolt at a time. The best part? She didn't even know yet. She came back a day early. I knew she would. People only delay their return when there's comfort waiting on the other side. When dread is waiting, they rush home, hoping proximity can fix what time already broke. The Uber pulled into the driveway at 7:48 p.m. Alice stepped out. Oversized sunglasses, still on, despite the fading light, dragging her carry-on like it owed her money. She had her phone pressed to her ear. Already mid-sentence. I just think we should talk in person. She froze when the key didn't turn. She tried again. Jiggle, twist, push, docked, once, twice. A nervous little laugh spilled out of her, like maybe the lock had simply gotten stiff. I sat on the porch, sipping lemon water, casual as a man watching the weather. It's been changed, I said flatly. She whipped her head toward me. Sunglasses still on, though I could see her jaw clench beneath them. You're serious? I nodded once. Nothing more. She laughed again, high, thin, brittle. You're being ridiculous. Come on, open the door. Let's talk. I don't think so. Her phone was still in her hand. She wasn't aware of how tightly she was gripping it, like it might somehow unlock the door for her. You're overreacting, she snapped. It was just a caption. For God's sake, I tilted my glass toward her suitcase. Nice trip. That one landed. She blinked, stammered. It was fine, productive. Productive, I repeated softly, letting the word hang between us. For a long moment, the only sound was the sprinkler kicking on down the street. Finally, she sighed, lowering her sunglasses, revealing eyes painted with exhaustion and the faintest trace of panic. Look, I don't know what you think you know, but I love you. You're my husband. This is a misunderstanding. I smiled slightly, not kindly, not cruelly, just the smile of a man who'd already moved his queen 3 turns ahead. HR opened an inquiry today. Her eyes widened. She opened her mouth, closed it again, a swallow. You didn't. I didn't do anything. I just told the truth. The photo spoke for itself. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at it. I didn't have to ask who it was. The way her thumb hovered told me enough. Don't, I said. She flinched like I'd shouted, though I hadn't raised my voice once. Slowly, she set the phone down on top of the suitcase. You can't just lock me out of my own house, she whispered. Our house, I corrected. For now. Her eyes darted to the porch light, to the hedges, to the neighbor's windows. She was calculating, wondering how much of this scene could be seen. She hated losing control, but she hated looking like she'd lost control even more. You're going to regret this, she hissed, finally dropping the cheerful facade. Maybe, I said, but not tonight. She wheeled her suitcase back, down the driveway, head held high, phone glued to her ear, again already calling someone else. Maybe a friend, maybe Bryce. It didn't matter. I knew where she'd end up, not at home, not in comfort. In limbo. I stayed on the porch until her Uber disappeared around the corner. Then I exhaled slowly and went inside. The house was silent, but silence wasn't empty, as it was full. Full of all the things she didn't know yet. In the study. The beige folder still sat on the table, untouched since I'd placed it there. Divorce papers, neat and final, waiting for her signature. On the desk beside it lay a second folder, my real work. Inside, copies of her text messages with Bryce, pulled from the family iPad she thought I'd stopped using. A credit card statement, highlighting charges from restaurants in Dallas she never mentioned. Hotel receipts, one with her name listed as second guest on Bryce's reservation. Evidence, lined up like dominoes. But I wasn't planning to topple them all at once, not yet. That would be messy. Loud. No, my style was precision, and precision takes time. The next morning, 6:32 a.m., I was at the kitchen counter making toast when my phone buzzed. Dawn again. A screenshot this time. Subject, HR compliance inquiry. Urgent from corporate ethics team. Date, 12:03 a.m. Cold. Clinical language. We've become aware of recent content shared online that may constitute a breach of professional standards during a company-sponsored event. Translation, they were sharpening the axe. I buttered my toast evenly, folded the email printout, and slid it into the folder. Each piece was a puzzle piece, and I already saw the picture forming. At 9:15 a.m., Alice called again. I didn't answer. She texted, we need to talk. I muted the thread. At 11 o'clock, she texted again. Please, it's not what you think. No reply. At 1:37 p.m., she tried calling from a blocked number. I answered. Silence on the line for 2 full seconds before she spoke. You're destroying me. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. I'm just watching. You still love me, she tried, her voice cracking on the word love. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling fan. I loved the woman I thought you were. Another silence. Then she whispered, please, don't do this. Check your work email, I said, and hung up. That evening, I made dinner, as usual. Chicken, roasted vegetables, a glass of red wine for myself. Routine, because routine is the best disguise for war. When the clock struck 8 o'clock, I logged into my private cloud account and uploaded the folder of evidence. Screenshots, receipts, emails, all neatly tagged. Then I set up 3 backups, one on a flash drive hidden in my toolbox, one in a fireproof safe deposit box at the bank, and one scheduled for automatic release to Marcus, my lawyer, if I didn't cancel the timer within 72 hours. It wasn't paranoia, it was structure. At 9:12, my phone buzzed again. Another text, just 2 words, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I put the phone face down on the counter and finished my wine. Sorry wasn't a cure. Sorry was a bandage after amputation. And she hadn't even noticed yet that the bleeding had already begun. By midnight, the house was quiet again. But in the silence, I could feel the shift. The balance of power had tipped. She thought she was walking back into the same marriage, the same house, the same man. What she didn't realize was that the man she left behind when she went to Dallas was gone. And the one who remained, he was already building her downfall, brick by brick, with her own mistakes as mortar. Alice had her HR meeting on a Tuesday morning. I knew, not because she told me she didn't, but because Don called the night before. He spoke in that hushed tone people use when they're confirming the storm has already made landfall. "Dude, it's bad," he whispered. They flagged the Facebook post, traced it to her company device. HR scheduled her for a compliance review. Word is, the VP is livid. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. A single meeting in HR is survivable. But when the VP already looks like someone just told him his portfolio tanked, the outcome isn't in question. I thanked Don, hung up, and went back to my chessboard. Yes, chessboard. Old walnut set, a little nicked from years of moving. I reset the pieces in silence. Each move a reminder that strategy isn't about the next turn, it's about 5 ahead. Tuesday morning. 7:03 a.m., Alice called. I didn't pick up. At 7:05, a text. "We need to talk before my meeting." At 7:08, another. "I know you sent it. Please don't let them fire me. We can work this out. Work this out." The phrase struck me as almost funny, like she was negotiating over dinner plans, not betrayal. At 8:30, I poured myself another coffee, opened my laptop, and logged into the bank account we used to share. Balance, $2,314.67. Enough for utilities. Groceries, maybe one more month of pretending everything was fine. She didn't know yet that the rest was gone. Relocated, partitioned, protected. I shut the laptop and went outside to rake leaves. Normal, ordinary, because routine is camouflage. Her meeting was at 10 a.m. I knew because at 10:04, Don texted me 3 words. "She's in tears." At 10:26, another, "They're grilling her." VP asked about Bryce directly. At 10:47, she denied everything. HR pulled the receipts. Your screenshots circulating. And finally, at 11:15, they're suspending her. Full investigation. I set the phone down on the workbench in the garage and stared at the old hammer hanging on the pegboard. Not because I wanted to use it, but because it reminded me of something my father used to say. Tools don't lie, people do. Alice had spent years underestimating silence, mistaking it for weakness. But silence was my hammer, and I had just used it to dismantle the entire frame of her life. She came home early that day, storming up the driveway in that frantic half-stride that always betrayed her nerves. Her car door slammed harder than usual. I was in the livingroom.com, reading a book. She burst through the door, face pale, makeup smudged. "How could you?" she demanded. I set the book down gently, marking the page. "How could I what?" "You know what you did," she snapped. "You ruined my career. Do you have any idea what they asked me today?" I looked at her evenly. "I imagine they asked if you were having an undisclosed relationship with a subordinate." She flinched. That tiny twitch of the mouth, enough to confirm what I already knew. Denial wasn't for me, it was for herself. I told them it was a joke, she said quickly. I told them everyone says work husband, work wife. It's office culture. They didn't believe me. Why would they? I asked softly. Her eyes narrowed. You wanted this. You wanted to humiliate me. No, I said, standing slowly. I wanted the truth to stand on its own. If humiliation followed, that's because of the choices you made. She froze. For a moment, the house was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Finally, she whispered, "You're destroying everything." "No," I said again. "I'm dismantling illusions. There's a difference." That night, she tried to play the role of wounded wife. Cooked dinner, poured me a glass of wine, even lit candles as if staging a reconciliation. But the tremor in her hands betrayed her. She wasn't nurturing. She was negotiating. Halfway through dinner, she finally tried again. "Look, maybe I made mistakes. Maybe things with Bryce got out of hand. But you can't throw away 27 years over something stupid." I set down my fork. "Alice, you threw away 27 years, the moment you called another man your real partner. I'm simply acknowledging the fact." Her voice rose slightly, sharper now. "So what? You want a divorce? You want to ruin me? Is that it?" I leaned back in my chair. folded my hands, and let the silence stretch. Then I said, "No, divorce isn't revenge. Divorce is freedom. Revenge, well, that's still unfolding." She stared at me, eyes wide, lips parted as if to protest. But no words came, for the first time in years. She realized she didn't know what I was capable of, and that terrified her. The next morning, I executed the next move. At 9:02 a.m., I called Marcus, my lawyer, filed the petition. I said by noon, he confirmed. Divorce papers officially filed with the county clerk. Service scheduled within 48 hours. At 3:14 p.m., I logged into the joint account again. Balance, $1,642.83. She'd tried to move $500 to her personal card. Denied. My restructuring had already blocked unauthorized transfers. At 6:20 p.m., Don texted again. "Bryce is freaking out. HR called him in. They know everything." I chuckled softly. The dominoes weren't just falling, they were collapsing the entire table. That evening, she confronted me again. This time, not with anger, but desperation. "I'll quit," she blurted, standing in the doorway of my study. "I'll walk away from the company if that's what you want. We can start fresh. Just don't take everything." I closed the folder in front of me, stacked it neatly, and looked up at her. "It's not about taking everything, Alice. It's about balance. You've been tilting the scales for years. I'm simply correcting them." Her voice cracked. "I'll lose my job, I'll lose everything." I shrugged slightly. "Then you'll know what it feels like." Later that night, when the house was finally still, I sat at my desk and wrote a single line in my notebook, "Phase to complete." She thought the lock on the door was the worst of it. She thought HR was the climax. But those were just preludes. Small cracks in the damn dot, because the real collapse was still coming. And when it did, it wouldn't be loud, it would be silent, inevitable, surgical, and she would never see it coming until it was already done. By Thursday morning, the unraveling had begun. Alice still tried to perform normalcy. She brewed coffee, left the news on in the background, even hummed while buttering toast as if sound could drown out consequence, but her eyes betrayed her. Every glance toward her phone was a silent prayer. At 8:47 a.m., her prayer was answered. The email arrived. She gasped, froze, then darted down the hall with her laptop like she could outrun it. I let her go. I didn't need to read it over her shoulder. Dawn had already forwarded me the same message 5 minutes earlier. Subject, administrative leave, pending investigation from corporate HR compliance. The language was polished. As expected, we are placing you on immediate leave, pending a full review of recent allegations. Please surrender your badge, company credit card, and access devices by 5 p.m. today. This action is non-punitive and does not imply guilt. Translation, you're done. Don't make us say it out loud yet. She returned to the kitchen, pale and trembling, her coffee untouched. "They're suspending me," she whispered, voice cracking on the word suspending. "They want my laptop, my badge, everything." I folded the newspaper and set it aside. "Standard procedure," I said calmly. Her eyes snapped to mine. "You think this is funny?" I shook my head. "No, predictable. You did this," she shouted, the first real edge of volume she'd allowed herself since Dallas. I tilted my head slightly. "No, Alice, you did this. I just didn't cover for you this time." By noon, she was on the phone with Bryce. She thought she was whispering from the laundry room, but her voice carried. "They can't prove anything," she hissed. "It was just a post. Just a stupid caption. They don't have a pause." Then her tone dropped, softer, panicked. "What do you mean you told them it was mutual? Bryce, you idiot." I smiled faintly. Silence really was the perfect hammer. 2 p.m., I received a notification from the bank, a denied transfer. She had tried to move $1,200 from our joint account to her personal card. Insufficient permissions. At 2:14 p.m., another attempt declined again. At 2:37, she came storming into my study. "What did you do to the accounts?" I looked up from my desk slowly, deliberately. "I secured them." Her face flushed. "That money is mine too." "Correction," I said evenly. "That money was ours. Now it's structured. Utilities and mortgage will be paid for the next month. After that, you'll need to use your own income." She stared at me unblinking. "You can't just cut me off. You cut yourself off. The moment you chose him," I replied. By evening, the panic was setting in. She sat on the couch, laptop open, whispering into her phone. Phrases drifted through the air like dying embers. "Maybe a lawyer. Wrongful termination. They can't do this." I poured myself a drink and watched the sun set through the window. Her silhouette against the screen looked small, smaller than I'd ever seen her. Friday morning brought the second blow. Dawn sent another text. "She's blacklisted. Internal memo says zero tolerance." Bryce too. I imagined the office chatter, the hushed voices at the water cooler, the not-so-subtle glances at the woman who used to brag about her flawless compliance record. At 10:23 a.m., Alice received the official call. She took it in the bedroom with the door shut, but walls don't hide tone. Her voice broke once, twice. By the time she emerged, her face was pale, her hands shaking. They fired me, she whispered. I didn't feign surprise. I simply nodded once and said, I know. She tried anger next. You wanted this. You wanted me ruined. No, I corrected gently. I wanted the truth revealed. The ruin was self-inflicted. You're enjoying this. She spat. I met her eyes. No, I'm documenting it. That afternoon, she discovered the credit cards. She tried to pay for gas. Declined. She tried groceries. Declined again. She returned home, furious, slamming bags on the counter. You canceled them. I removed you as an authorized user. I clarified. Big difference. Her lips trembled. You're leaving me with nothing. Nothing. I repeated, standing slowly. You still have your car, your clothes, your jewelry, a house with utilities paid for 30 days. That's more than most people start with after betrayal. She flinched, like I'd struck her, but I hadn't moved closer. I didn't need to. Saturday morning, she tried one more trick. Pity. She sat at the table, eyes red, tissues scattered. I made a mistake, she whispered. I don't know what I thought. Maybe I wanted to feel younger. Wanted to feel wanted, but it didn't mean anything. I stirred my coffee. You captioned it, my real partner. That meant something. Her lip quivered. Please, don't leave me with nothing. I set the spoon down carefully. I'm not leaving you with nothing. I'm leaving you with yourself. That's what you always wanted, isn't it? By Sunday, she stopped pretending. No more humming, no more candlelit dinners. Just silence. Long, heavy silence. But silence is my territory. She was a guest there. And in silence, she was powerless. Monday morning, I made the next move. I visited the bank, quietly transferring the last of my retirement accounts into the trust Marcus had set up. Paperwork crisp. Signatures deliberate. By noon. I had restructured everything. 401k gives living trust, brokerage account gives sister, Elaine, as beneficiary, life insurance gives trust. Not Alice, property deed gives temporary hold, pending divorce. Proceedings. It wasn't vengeance. It was preparation. Architecture. Alice thought betrayal was a caption. I knew it was a contract, and contracts can be rewritten. That evening, she tried one last time. You can't just erase me, she whispered. I closed my notebook, looked her in the eye, and said calmly, you erased yourself. I'm just filing the paperwork. That night, while she cried quietly in the bedroom, I sat in the garage with a glass of bourbon and opened the folder one more time. Every receipt, every screenshot, every legal form. Phase 3 was ready. And when it landed, it wouldn't just take her job. It would take her future. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about destruction, it's about erasure. And she was about to learn what it feels like to disappear. By Tuesday, Alice finally realized the extent of the trap. The locks had been changed. Her company was finished with her. Her credit cards dead. Her accounts reduced to a drip. But she still clung to the illusion of safety. The house. At breakfast, she said, almost casually, at least the house is half mine. You can't take that. I smiled into my coffee. Of course, she didn't notice the small stack of envelopes. On the desk behind me, updated mortgage documents Marcus had filed, transferring ownership into the trust. Not yet finalized, but far enough in motion that her name was already evaporating from the records. That night, she rummaged through drawers, pulling out old statements, muttering under her breath. The sound of desperation, dressed as determination, looking for something. I asked from the doorway. She froze. Where are the bank papers? The deed? I shook my head slowly. Alice, you stopped saying R the moment you posted my real partner. Her hands trembled. She sat back down, eyes glassy. For the first time, she whispered, I don't know what to do. I didn't answer. Silence was enough. It wasn't just her finances collapsing. Her friends began to circle, curious and suspicious. On Wednesday evening, her phone buzzed relentlessly. Group chat notifications. The kind filled with half concern, half gossip. Alice, what happened at work? I saw the HR memo. Are you okay? Is it true about Bryce? She typed replies furiously, then deleted them. Tried again. Deleted again. Her fingers twitched against the screen like a pianist who'd lost her sheet music. By Thursday, silence. Met her in return. Calls went unanswered. Lunch invites evaporated. Social media likes dwindled. She scrolled endlessly, refreshing, as if one heart emoji could restore her status. But the algorithm of betrayal has no mercy. At dinner, she pushed food around her plate. They think I'm toxic, she muttered. I sipped my wine. People don't abandon what they value. They abandon what they no longer need. She looked at me sharply. You sound like you're enjoying this. I shook my head. I'm just observing the math. Friday evening, it finally broke. She stood in the kitchen, hands flat on the counter, breathing hard. You win. Okay, you've taken everything. My job, my money, my friends. What else do you want from me? I set down the newspaper, folded it carefully, and looked at her. Nothing. She blinked. Nothing. Then why? Because, I said evenly, you needed to understand that actions echo. You didn't just cheat on me, Alice, you cheated on trust. On 27 years of faith. And trust, once broken, isn't repaired, it's replaced. Her voice cracked. Replaced with what? I stood, walked to the desk, and picked up a thin manila envelope. I placed it on the table in front of her. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a notarized letter. A clean transfer of the house, the accounts, and the remaining assets into my name alone. Divorce papers filed. Property division finalized. She had no claims left. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Oh, you left me with nothing. I shook my head. I left you with yourself. That's what you always wanted, isn't it? Hurt? Tears came silently, streaking down her cheeks as she stared at the papers. I turned, walked to the door, and paused just long enough to add, consider this the receipt. Saturday morning, I left the house early. She was still asleep, or pretending to be. I drove to the bank, retrieved the final flash drive from my safe deposit box, and delivered it to Marcus. Trigger it, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You're certain? More than certain. That afternoon, while Alice sat in the empty kitchen, staring at her phone, the final wave landed. Her name was flagged in the company's industry, network a quiet blacklist that ensured she'd never work in corporate management again. At the same time, the trust I'd built filed a claim against her personal credit for debts she'd run up in both our names. Every financial door closed in unison. At 6 p.m., I returned home. She sat at the table, eyes red, hands trembling over a single sheet of paper. What did you do? She whispered. I poured a glass of water, sat opposite her, and said, I cut the brakes, months ago. You were too busy smiling for photos to notice. Her voice broke. Where will I go? I leaned forward, held her gaze and answered softly. Anywhere you want, just not here, not with me. I stood, picked up my coat, and walked out the door. No shouting, no slammed doors, just silence. Because some revenge is loud, but the most dangerous, it's whispering.